Now that we are back, welcome back to some more Stormworks. I'm StormRunner Gaming, and today I am here with a pretty familiar vehicle, the pickup truck, but with a couple upgrades to it. And if you haven't noticed already, there are a few different upgrades. One main upgrade being that I'm going to highlight today, but I'm going to talk about the other more subtle things I've changed on this. Of course, that back end has got a little bit of a change to it, doesn't have that weird substructure on it anymore, as well as I've done a little bit of body work to it, just changing up the style as well as making it just a little bit lighter. And another change so that we can conquer some new terrain here is a block lift on those tires here. So we have a lot more clearance to get over that brand new mainland. And that is why I'm actually going around and refreshing a lot of my land vehicles here so that they work pretty well. And especially this one, because this is probably going to be the main vehicle I'm going to take to explore. And if you guys do want to join me, I'm going to be live streaming tomorrow with the brand new mega update to Stormworks with the mainland. But anyways, another update I've done to this vehicle, if we do start that engine right up, instead of just having the PRD right here, we also do have an indicator to tell us what gear we are in, that being park, reverse, or drive. And so if you change it around, you can kind of play around with it and it'll exactly change to what gear we are in when you change it to that gear. So it's just to help out anyone that had trouble with the PRD throttle control in there, as well as I've added another button, but I do want to explain it real quick because we're done with all the little small nitty-gritty things with the vehicle. The main safety feature to the vehicle that I've done a change. And you may be thinking, well, Storm, how in the world are you going to make a safer vehicle in Stormworks? And an age-old technology that even cars for, I don't know, almost 100 years now have had are bumpers. And I mean, you could make a bumper in Stormworks, but maybe 20-25 miles an hour, you take a crash and you would damage that interior engine here. And this being a lighter vehicle meant for off-roading, that engine is very vulnerable to front-end crashes. So what I've done is I've slapped a bumper on it. And you may be a little bit weirded out by the pneumatic pistons connected up to it, but I've done a little bit of testing, and between the pneumatic pistons and regular suspension, the pneumatic pistons can take, 3 or 4 times the speed crash than the regular suspension on a bumper. And if you want to know my actual testing numbers, the regular suspension could take upwards of maybe a 25 mile an hour crash, which kind of maybe in real life you could get that depending on the vehicle and the circumstances of the crashes. You definitely destroy the bumper on a real car, but I've gotten this to some crazy numbers here where this can actually take a pretty substantial crash here. So let's jump into the vehicle and I'll just show you guys how crazy this thing can actually get here. Alright, so let's turn on the car here, and the first test I'm going to do with the bumper is just straight backing up into a wall, because we do have a rear end bumper here that can take a decent crash there, and we don't exactly know the speed of that, but I mean we were moving decently well with that. It'd be great if I actually put it into drive here. So this time I'm going to be watching the speed, and we should be able to get upwards of, let's just say, maybe 40 miles an hour. And we get minimal to no damage there. It does depend. Sometimes the game will jump the car from side to side and you will take damage, but with a regular crash out of that standard there, the entire back end would have been destroyed. And usually the full line, I don't know if I can actually get a good angle here. 1 second. Let me get a better angle of this with the free cam. When we did take damage from that back end, it would not only break the back 2 wheels, losing power and everything to them, we would also break this gearbox, sending power back to the front end as well. So basically, we would have a running engine, but the car would be dead because the gearboxes would be dead as well. So we now can send it on some pretty quick front end collisions here. And what I was talking about earlier, we have this safety bumper activation. And now it comes with a little bit of a story. When I was previously testing this, if you guys have played around with the pneumatic pistons, you know that they can extend. And one of the things I did with it was crashing into a wall with the piston extended versus the pneumatic piston not extended. And of course, with the pneumatic piston extended, it could take a better hit at higher speeds. The problem with that, though, is it kind of sticks further out, which kind of makes the car look a little bit weird. So my quick fix to that was having this safety bumper activation, which was suggested to me by another guy that also plays a lot of Stormworks. But basically what it does, if you haven't seen it already, it's just got a sensor on the front end which is going to activate the pistons, pushing them forward to stop the car at faster speeds. And usually we should be able to get around a 75-mile-an-hour crash on the front end with little to no damage. I know I'm going a little bit slow, but I mean, still, we were in the high 60s there. As you can see, it almost looks like a full-on piston just pushing you away from the wall. But the activation system worked perfectly, and we have no damage to the front end of the vehicle, especially that working engine. So I've kind of tested it out more and more, and it can sometimes, depending on how you hit the wall and everything, go up to a 90-mile-an-hour crash and be perfectly fine. I did have a previous version that could go over 100 miles an hour, but the biggest problem with that was it was a huge, clunky bumper on the front end that would have totally killed the vehicle's off-roading capability. So another feature I like with this as well is if you do crash into the side of a mountain and whatnot, the vehicle will be totally fine. If you're going like 50 and you slam on the brakes as you get way too close, you get no damage to the vehicle either. And I don't know how many times I've done that when the vehicle will hit the side of a mountain and break the engine like that just because of its forward engine with minimal blocks in front of it to make it smaller. The engine breaks so easily. Sorry, my mind got jumbled up in 4 different things, but now with that bumper there, it seems to be pretty good. So let's see if I can keep it above 80 going at this wall, and if the crash will be perfectly fine. Oh, yep, we hit it at somewhat of an angle, and the car is now dead. As you can see, those high-speed crashes just destroy the vehicle. And I'm going to do a quick comparison between the bumpered version and the non-bumpered version. So we saw it worked at around 70 miles an hour. Let's see how fast we have to be going to destroy the previous version. So I've now pulled out the previous version of this truck. I know I do have the substructure and everything on the back end, but that shouldn't matter so much. The only thing we really care about is just crashing into a wall here. So I'm going to keep it hopefully around 30 miles an hour and see how bad of a crash we get here. Yep, not even 30 miles an hour when we hit the wall, and we are in a fiery inferno. So that's basically what I'm trying to, I guess, prevent, making a much safer car. So it can easily, if you hit a wall at 50 miles an hour, with that button activated, it can easily take a hit there and you won't have to respawn the vehicle. But with this one, not even 30 miles an hour and the thing's dead. So I'm going to grab the other one and just see how far I can actually get on video pushing it into that wall with the bumper activated. Alright, we're going out for the turnaround for the next test here. Let's see if I can get it up to 80s, 85 yet again. It's just going to be a weird spot to hit that wall. And one of the problems I've been noticing by lifting this yet another block is it is much more bouncier. Ooh, where was 80? That minimal damage to the front end, but it survived, I'm pretty sure. We have perfect engine power. So let's see if we can get it up to a full 100 here before it destroys itself. Because I want to get 100 mile an hour run, but it's more of an oddity if you know what I'm saying. Like, it's only in rare cases that it will survive with that 100 mile an hour crash. And if anybody is wondering real quick before this run of the test why I put in the safety bumper activation thing, it's because if you're going over any terrain and that distance sensor is active, like it is currently, the bumper is basically going to act like Pac-Man trying to eat up the ground here. As you can see, it'll pop in and out as it sees ground in front of it. So you can just turn it off and you won't have any problem with it activating and getting in the way of doing some pretty good off-roading. And with the upgrades in that tilt on it, and the height as well, it's actually a lot better than the previous version at off-roading. Anyways, sorry for getting off task there. Let's see if I can get it up to 100 yet again. There's 90s. There's 100. We're in 90s. Nope. It's like that buck and bull when it hits the wall, and it's just a random occurrence depending if it will or if it won't actually survive there. And I'm kind of playing a lottery right now to see if I can actually get it to work, I guess. Because I've gotten it to work once or twice, but it doesn't seem like it wants to do it for me today. So I've given it my best shot here with the bumpers, trying to get it up to 100 miles an hour. I believe I ran probably more than 20-25 tests here, running back and forth trying to get it to work here, and it just doesn't seem like I can get it to substantially take a 100-mile-an-hour crash. The best one I did do was getting it up to the max speed of 124 braking, but when I hit the wall I was probably going 60-70 miles an hour because I was slamming on the brakes somewhere after this dotted red line over here, and I'm surprised how quickly the vehicle actually did stop for me. But yeah, it just doesn't seem like it can get above an 80-mile-an-hour crash here. I did get one 80-mile-an-hour, but I didn't think it was that substantial versus the 70-75 I had previously. And the testing came to a screeching halt when the game said, "No, Storm, you're not allowed to do this anymore," and it crashed on me. So it's probably because playing around with the pneumatic pistons flying straight into a wall, I probably glitched into a wall and crashed the entire game. And I wouldn't be surprised that that is the problem that occurred. But anyways, yeah, that is the bumpered utility vehicle I've got here. If you guys do want to come and pick it up for yourself, I'll have a link for it down below in that description. There's a pretty good truck here that can take a pretty good line off-road, as well as a beating with those bumpers, as you've seen, around 50 miles an hour for the back end, and a 75-mile-an-hour front-end crash straight into a wall or other vehicles. But of course, it also does shine pretty well when you're doing any off-roading with a very high torque ratioed engine there, and a low gear if you do need it for some crawling around. And one of the amazing things I did want to show off with the new lifted version that the previous one couldn't do, it has enough grip with the regular tires, which we all know by now they don't do much difference versus the gripped ones, but it has enough power and whatnot to get straight up this little lip here. And I know it looks like it's taking extremely long to do this, but I mean, it's getting there. Like, that's insane to me when you just drop it in that low gear and fly up. Granted, if you just leave it on the automatic mode, it'll get up there as well, but it does a lot of slipping and you're just revving the engine a lot more. So it's a lot more controlled when you have it in that low gear for that extreme, I guess, high-angled off-roading there. But yeah, that is where I am going to be ending this video here. So if you guys did like this video, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel to stay up with Stormworks and more of my content. But I've never been great. Goodbyes, my people need me, and I need to go.